Get the fuck up.
It is Courts of Thunder, our Wimbledon preview edition. He's Greg Rosenthal. I'm Glenn Clark. It feels like it was just a couple of days ago that we were getting together, putting the finishing touches on the French Open, and here we are ready for Slam number 3 of the year. And for the first time ever, play on a middle Sunday.
Ooh.
At Wimbledon, Greg.
Well, yeah, they had it sometimes in the rain year. I mean, they're putting in extra work. We're putting in extra work. Never let the Courts of Thunder listeners out there, you know, the proud among them, think that we don't love them. Because I just got out of bed.
True.
And straight to Courts of Thunder. You've got a show later. I'm leaving the country later, and it's like, what should we do first thing? We love to hear ourselves talk, especially about tennis. Let's talk about it. I am excited. I'm excited.
This is the good news. We'll save the bad news for later in the program. We'll wait till then in order to do it. Let's get right into it, shall we?
Courts of Thunder.
Let's begin with someone who we haven't seen in a while, Greg, who is back. We saw her playing doubles with your girl, Ons Jabeur, which was a lot of fun, man. Like, it was really fun watching the two of them play together. Serena Williams, 40 years old, is in the field and still has some history at stake, still has some reason to want not just to keep playing for the sake of playing, but to want to try to win if she's capable of doing it.
Yeah, she's got to stay ahead of Nadal? Because she's at 23, he's at 22. You know, it's a big race, and she's always a Nadal fan, so maybe that's what's firing her up.
Look, we've said before, the number 24 doesn't actually matter. It's not a real number. It's a make-believe number. It comes from a before there was an open era. These were not real tournaments. She has the actual Slam record. The one that matters and is real belongs to her. But there is still this other number, and it has existed, and we've talked about it. And knowing Serena, it likely still drives her.
Well, I think the number that means the most to her is 0 Grand Slams since she came back from having a child, and her record in the finals. And I think she probably would be interested in playing and in stacking numbers forever in an unpredictable way. But I think that as a competitor, that has been important to her, because she said as much. And she's put more on the Margaret Court number than some in the media even have. So she's into that too. But I just think it's nice that she didn't go out completely with the injury that she had at Wimbledon. We haven't seen her. She's literally unranked, Glenn. She does not have a rankings point entering this tournament. And she was thrown into a quarter of the draw here, where I think the initial reaction was like, oh, it could have been worse. She doesn't have like the hardest first couple rounds or whatever relatively, but this quarter is stacked.
And the quarter is nuts. Yeah.
Right. If you were asking me to pick one quarter of either draw that I would watch all the matches of for the first week of the tournament, this would be the quarter. And it's largely because of Serena. I want to see her play again. But there's a lot of other potential great matches in this quarter. And the doubles, Glenn, which I watched because she was playing with my girl Ons, made me more optimistic about Serena. Maybe it's a small sample size thing. It's like getting excited about a rookie quarterback based on their first preseason. It's like, I don't really know, but I don't know. Serena looked pretty good in those two matches. She played better than Ons in those two matches, and she served really well. And I don't know, I took that she's been getting ready for this moment. She didn't just show up, put it that way.
Like, to your point, you know, she could have drawn a seed in the first round. I mean, she could have drawn a really difficult opponent in the first round.
She has Harmony Tan, who I've watched, and it's kind of a fun player to watch. Might be a fun match, but yeah, a good draw.
And the seed that would be next is Sarah Sorribes Tormo, who is such a difficult player to play. Like, her style is just so ungodly.
She was in one of those. She played him in double. That was her last match. She was in that doubles match against Serena, weirdly.
Right. But the point being, like, it could have been worse. She could have literally been given anybody in the first.
I've got
round.
a stat for you. You know, I told you I did some prep. I'm a pro here.
Look at you. Look at you.
I mean, at first I was like, oh, that is a tricky second round potentially. On the other hand, I looked at Sorribes's Tormo's career record on grass. She's more of a clay courter. She is 7-11 on grass career-wise. Serena is 107-16. I actually thought that number would be higher, but you just grass court season's short, and she doesn't play that many lead ups. So, but yeah. Right. So those first 2 rounds are very doable, and then hopefully she can get into the tournament, but it's just so unpredictable. But after that, I think it's going to be brutal. She might, after that, seeing the path to Serena's title is going to be extremely challenging, but at least she has those couple matches if she can stay healthy and if she's Serena and can have the endurance to get into the tournament. And that's what you would want, I think, as a Serena fan. So
what we're alluding to is that in her quarter alone, you see Paula Badosa, you see Petra Kvitova, you see Camila Giorgi, you see Simona Halep, and you see who I think, and Serena, of course, is the story, but if you go back to that French Open recap show that we did, to me, the bigger story moving forward is what does Coco Gauff do coming off of her run to the French Open final? That, to me, is my kind of biggest story, is does she follow that up by the moment kind of overwhelming her and having a letdown early in the tournament, or does she back it up by doing something really impressive? We kind of talked about how Emma Raducanu followed up the run. I know she had more time between Wimbledon and the U.S. Open a year ago, but how do you handle that? How do you handle this most significant success that you have experienced in your career? And can you follow that up, or did falling flat in the final, did it kind of wreck you emotionally? Are you not prepared to dig back in and really be ready to play for 2 weeks? So to me, Coco, I get it. Serena's got to be the story, and we can get to Iga, but Iga's a complicated story at Wimbledon. Serena's going to be the biggest story because she's Serena Williams. But to me, I honestly believe that Coco is the more important, prolonged story, and how she follows up that run at the French.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't see it as nothing to me could be more important than Serena.
Look, if Serena if Serena Williams making a run at Wimbledon, I get it. I understand. Yeah. Trust me.
But I hear what you're saying. And to that point, I thought when she spoke after the French Open a few times, and I think she's the type of player that is always so motivated that this will give her confidence. She said as much, that I think it was a bit of a relief for her, because she thought she was behind schedule, and now it's almost like, hey, I did something great. And I watched her play a little bit in Berlin. That was the only grass court lead up that she played. She beat Pliskova in the quarterfinals. She won a couple straight set matches before that. Pliskova is also in this quarter. And she lost to Ons, who won the tournament, in the semifinals, which is not a bad loss. And so I think that was encouraging to back up that French, to get on grass, where she's obviously had her breakout run here at Wimbledon, to the quarterfinals. What was that, 3 years ago now? 4 years ago? It's crazy.
Jeez.
4 years ago. So she was 15. Now she's 18. And I think she'll come out playing well. The trick is, this quarter, as we mentioned, is loaded. She would get, and I think she has a very manageable first 2 rounds. And that's kind of true of this entire quarter. And then suddenly the third round is just loaded. Coco would play Amanda Anisimova in the third round, who I feel like just keeps getting drawn into these blockbusters. And the winner of that could play Serena if Serena can get there. But I'm definitely not. I think Serena could win this tournament, but I also think, like, if you told me she plays a long 3-setter against Sorribes Tormo and runs out of gas, or that one makes her run out of gas so that she loses the next round, like, if she loses in round, you can't totally assume anything. I think I don't rule her out from winning this tournament, but I think just showing that she has match fitness, and that's what I felt good about watching her. I think she looked pretty fit, and she looked like she was hitting the ball quite well and serving well and volleying well. So it looked like she had been prepping for this specific tournament for a couple months. Then again, if she's playing Coco after having to play Pliskova, it's like it's hard to consider Serena a favorite or Anisimova. And so that those four right there are so intriguing, because Pliskova made the finals here a year ago. That is not an easy third round draw for Serena. I know Pliskova has not played well at all year, basically.
Yeah.
But this is kind of her tournament with the big serves. There probably won't be many breaks between her and Serena. And that would be a rematch, by the way, of one of the most underrated Grand Slam finals ever. One of Serena's best, that final against Pliskova when she pulled it out.
We also barely have talked about Simona Halep in this.
Right. That's the other half. Like, even just that, we've spent it all on that bottom half of this quarter just to get to the quarterfinals. That's what I mean. Serena's going to probably have to win 5 tough matches to win, which is just like, oof, that could be tough to get all the way to the championship.
So do you want to go on record who's coming out of the quarter?
Well, let's mention the top briefly, because your girl Badosa is coming in bad form. I mean,
there's no way around it. You're not wrong.
She had a terrible loss to someone I hadn't heard of from the UK called Barrage.
Mm-hmm.
Nice tennis name. And she just gave her the dead fish handshake and wouldn't look at her. She was so mad, Badosa. And she's up there. That side of the quarter is not as bad, but Kvitova is there, and Kvitova just won Eastbourne coming into Wimbledon. She's done that before, where she's won these lead ups on grass. She's of course a 2-time Wimbledon champ. She hasn't done anything at Wimbledon in 8 or 9 years, but Kvitova is one of the betting favorites to win this title. And it doesn't surprise me.
Third favorite to win the title.
So it's funny, if she actually made it to whoever survives below Serena, Coco, Anisimova, Kvitova would probably be the favorite even in that match. So it is a tough one for anyone to get through. Who will I pick? Well, I'm just gonna pick Serena because it's fun.
It is fun. You're right. I'm going Simona. I'm going Simona.
Interesting. Wow.
By the way, I've got odds from my friends at FanDuel for the quarters, just to get through the quarter. They're providing those. They've got Kvitova plus 350, Coco Gauff plus 4-1, and Simona plus 550. Serena 650.
Well, that's a loaded quarter. By the way, that could be the round of 16. By the way, that's outrageous. Coco versus Serena,
insane, right? And
Halep, who's been up and down, coming in with an injury, but has won some matches. Obviously, had that Wimbledon championship. That's crazy to me. I'm just saying, it's pretty rare when you can get Serena plus 1,000 to win Wimbledon. So I'm just saying.
By the way, shows you how they feel about Paolo, that she's 23-1 just to get to the quarter. Like,
she's
yikes.
Your girl.
Man, I'm not.
Her first couple matches look winnable, so maybe then she can get a little confidence before she'd play Petra. But that would be a 3rd round match where, despite the seeds, she'd be a heavy underdog. Let's go Serena. But Kvitova would be a great feel good story too. If I could pick anyone to go win this, the side of the draw other than Serena, I would go with Petra.
All right, let's go to the top half, Sean. The top quarter, I mean.
Courts of Thunder.
That's where we find Iga Swiatek, and this is like in any world, someone in Iga Swiatek's shoes should be the biggest story coming into Wimbledon.
It's true,
but there's Serena Williams, and then there's the other thing with Iga Swiatek, which is she's never done anything at Wimbledon. And are we at a point with Iga now where that doesn't matter, where she's just so much better than everybody else that talking about the fact that was she 3-2, I believe, all time at Wimbledon is no longer irrelevant? Or do we still have to file that away and say she's got to go prove it before we just assume that this continues?
Well, both. I think the answer is yes to all of that, because I think there's a difference here. And I've heard some analysis about this tournament, and there's a lot of questions about Iga and that this women's is open. But I think there's a difference between like the tennis analysts and us talking and the betting public, the betting lines. And I think in the betting lines have Iga as plus 150 to win the tournament. Now that's not where she was for French, but that's a way, way better odds than anyone else in the field. And that makes sense to me, because I just think we've seen on the men's side, and for the most part on the women's, great players can win on any surface. And yeah, she hasn't done it before. But I don't think I don't think she's losing to Jonna Fett in the first round or Kavinovic in the second. And once she gets into the tournament and gets used to grass, she's just so good at playing tennis that when she's the best tennis player in the world, I think she can win playing tennis, which is like how Halep won this tournament.
Okay, but why wasn't that the case for Naomi then?
I think Iga's, first of all, more dominant than Naomi was at any point. And I just don't, I guess I don't see any reason why Iga couldn't have an all-court game like a Kerber, like a Halep, like a Nadal, Frank, like a Djokovic. I mean, this is like Djokovic's best surface, weirdly.
Right.
Like it's well, I don't know, but I guess Australia. It's not his best surface, but he's, I just mean like great players who play any style can win. So I guess I think she's by far the most likely woman to win Wimbledon. But unlike France, I would probably take the field over her, but it's like not by a lot, but I still would take her over any woman. Does that make sense to you? Breaking it up that way.
Yes, it makes sense, except I'm not even sure. This is where my reluctance will come into play. I'm not sure that I agree that she's definitely the player to beat because I need to have seen it. And I get it. I know everything you're saying is true. At the same time, I do still think surface matters, and we're going to talk about that when we get over to the men's side and the play. I think there's a significant parallel as far as guys.
What matters, yeah, because if it was harder clay, I would say I would take her over the field. I'd go, but now I would take the field. But I still think I think she's going to be a great of greats, and I think they do special things like win these 2 tournaments in a row and win 42 matches in a row. I just think she has a decent shot at it. And I like her draw. I think this top half.
This quarter couldn't have gone much better for her.
Right. It's really just that one quarter that Serena's in is loaded, and almost everywhere else there's opportunities, I think, for people. She, like I mentioned, the first 2 matches, her first seed is Putintseva, but I think Cornet is more likely. She could play either Kochikova, who hasn't won anything since she was injured and came back, in the 4th round potentially. And then on the bottom side, like Andreescu, who just made a final, maybe is the favorite to make it all the way to the round of 6 to the quarters.
Sloane's there too.
Sloane's there Sloane is part of the best first round match, maybe on the women's side for me, which is Sloane versus my girl Xinwen Zhang. That's fun.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. 100%. That's tremendous.
And the winner of that, I think it's so open in this bottom quarter. The winner of that first round, I think, would have a shot to go deep, to go to the quarters. They would play Muguruza in the second round, who's having just a miserable year. Andreescu would possibly play Rybakina at some point in there. Pegula's in this quarter against Vekic. I'm not sure about Pegula's prep. Her mom, unfortunately,
we haven't seen her since.
Yeah, there was a report her mom was in the hospital and she was with her and it was really serious. So that you feel for her, but that might not be a good situation for her. One of the matches I want to see in this tournament beyond Serena Coco is Bianca Iga in the quarters.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Because at that point, Bianca's in the tournament and she's playing good ball, and she feels like someone who would just end a streak, doesn't she?
100%. And that's the other thing that I think that I'm weighing when I talk about how I feel about Iga going into this. It's not her surface, and we just don't see players win 40 plus consecutive matches.
Right.
We just don't. I get it. She is head and shoulders above everyone, but at some point, even those players lose a match somewhere along the lines. And Sure, okay.
And so here are 2 new entrants, newish for this year. That's good to add to the mix. It'd be nice to add Naomi to the mix too. Naomi, because let's be real, Andreescu, if you're like a casual listener, you'll remember her having had her run in the US Open 3 years ago, where in really that whole summer, where she was the next big thing. She was the next Iga. She was the outside, and she's struggled with injuries. She's been on and off the tour, and she's trying to make a run back at it right now and seems to be getting a little momentum. And so if she's there, she would make this entire rest of the summer and season more interesting.
Agreed.
Adding her, Serena, and potentially Naomi to the mix, then suddenly, like, forget about it's just Iga. Then there's a lot of heavyweights there.
I agree.
Your girl Badosa is not taking care of things at the top.
All right, thank you for. I mean, you got to keep rubbing it in, man.
I'm rooting for her. I'm just like, man, this is
thanks a lot, bro. Appreciate it,
man. Sorry. All right, the next half of it we could be a little.
Right, but are we both saying though that Iga is who we think's coming out ultimately, or do you think Bianca?
I am. I do think it's Iga. I think Andreescu, if she gets there though, she's such a big match player. She would relish that. And I would give her quite a good chance if she actually gets to the quarters that she ends it there, but it's going to be tough for her to get there.
Okay.
Courts of Thunder.
On to quarter number 3. And that's where we find, I don't want to give it away, but that's where we find my pick to win Wimbledon this year.
Wow. Well, it makes sense.
I am going with Gregg's girl. Unlike him, who's rubbing it in about how Pal is doing, I am picking Ons Jabeur to win Wimbledon, and we find her at the bottom of quarter number 3, and things seem to have broken quite well for her. There's I guess Angie Kerber is the story, right? Like that's the one.
That would be a round of 16 matchup. She obviously has, success on grass. She played pretty well last week in Bad Homburg. So yeah, that would be a tough round 4.
And maybe I'm being unfair to maybe I should be saying Raducanu is the story too, right? Like I don't know what to make of Raducanu, man. Like I have no clue what to expect from Emma Raducanu. I think we know enough about Angie Kerber to know she's probably going to play well at Wimbledon.
Yeah, and I think she was getting it going on clay. That is a very tricky potential 4th round for Ons. But beside that, I think she's the biggest draw winner, maybe in either draw, men's or women's. The two halves on the women's side are imbalanced. Ons is the best player on this side. She won Berlin. I think grass is her best surface, should be her best surface. But she just hasn't done it at Grand Slams. She hasn't made it to a Grand Slam semi. The first time she was such a high seed at the French just a few weeks ago, she lost in the first round. And so those are two, concerning things as a big fan. But I think getting that out of the way and having the victory in Berlin, where she also beat Bencic in the final. Bencic withdrew, but Ons was already up, was about to win that first set at least before that. That's got to give her some good confidence. And it's a soft quarter for Ons to get into the tournament for sure.
It's a very soft quarter. Look, I think we have to say there is always the possibility that Emma Raducanu gets the crowd behind her and, like you say, plays a match or two. Suddenly she's in the tournament and she finds the form that she had last summer, right? Like I can't ignore that playing at home and with a place that's going to be raucous, that is just going to be electric. And we got full crowds again this year after they did limited crowds a year ago. It just could create something crazy for her. She is still young, and there could also be an amount of pressure that comes with that. But, given how she's playing,
she had an injury in the lead up, like her first grass match this year. She had an injury and wasn't able to prepare. She's actually the underdog in her first round match against Van Uytwink. Yeah. This is where the prep helped, Glenn. I would have not have known that Van Uytwink, one of the best redheaded players on either tour. I guess Jannik Sinner has that, that nod. Had a great grass season, a couple quarterfinals, and won a challenger and won a 125. And so I was like, why is Van Uytwink like a decent
favorite? She took Anisimova to a third set tiebreak,
right? And had some tough third set tiebreak losses to top players. I was like, why is Van Uytwink a favorite over Raducanu in round 1? So that's tough for Raducanu. And that half of the quarter, Owns' half her first few matches look easy. She plays Denis Shapovalov's girlfriend in the first round. I didn't know that Denis Shapovalov had a girlfriend that plays under the Swedish flag who qualified, Mirjam Björklund.
Okay.
But her half other than Kerber's pretty soft too, but the Raducanu one's wide open. Danielle Collins is there, has barely played. She's the top seed as a 7 seed. Ali Risk is in there, some opportunity for her. She's actually seeded at this tournament. And then Caroline Garcia, who won that tournament over Andreescu. I forget where that was, that in Germany, I think.
Yeah.
Would actually probably be the slight favorite here to get out of that entire group. And so that's maybe the weakest 16th of the entire draw. And I the way Garcia is playing, she has a chance there. And that's like what I'm talking about. That could be Owens' quarterfinal opponent. But we'll see. Usually when we do these preview shows, you don't want to look too far ahead.
No, don't want to look terribly far ahead. Look, and the other story being that Maddie Keys is not going to play in this tournament.
Yeah, she was in this group and I think would have been okay. And Zhang Shuai got her spot. I think Keys was kind of my pick to make it through and maybe even beat Ons, but then she got hurt.
All right, for the sake of pacing this, let's go ahead and hit because there is
Courts of Thunder.
There really is not much to say about the bottom quarter. I have no idea, bro. Like, I have truly no clue who comes out of that bottom quarter because you tell me who you're feeling a lot of faith in.
Okay. Well, I think 3 names stick out. Ostapenko is the 12 seed. She has a good history on grass. She lost in the finals to Kvitova in Eastbourne and had some good wins there and had a good tournament before that. Beatrice Haddad Maya, who I can't say I had ever watched before the last few weeks, won 13 straight matches, including 2 straight tournaments, and then a semifinals on Eastbourne on grass, and is suddenly the 23rd seed. She would play Belinda Bencic, who's also had some solid results.
By the way, I believe
on grass.
It's ironic that I believe one of her wins was over Zachary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Zachary is the high seed in this entire quarter, but yeah, she could play Ostapenko in the round of 16. I also think Haddad Maya sneaky looks like Bencic if they play each other. Just kind of keep an eye on that, just like their faces.
Okay.
Right. Just saying. And so those are players actually not huge, not like capital names, but like they're actually playing quite well. The weird thing is though that we right now have in the women's game, unfortunately, is like Kontaveit the 2 seed. It's like what? And Zachary's been struggling in relatively. She's the 5 seed. She would play Seville in the second round, who's been playing really well, and that's a potential L. And Kontaveit just hasn't played. She's been hurt and then had COVID and has not had a good year, and yet is number 2 in this draw.
By the way, the odds for this quarter: Ostapenko plus 380, Haddad Maya plus 390, Bencic plus 480, Zachary plus 550. So there is no consensus whatsoever.
I think I'd go Haddad Maya. Just not that I know anything, but just like go with the one that just won a ton of matches and like almost won. Almost got to her 3rd straight final. But Ostapenko would be a fun one because I think she's a bit of a disruptor and hasn't had very good Grand Slam results lately, but has done well enough on the tour to get that seed back up nice and high.
There is a part of me, just because I've been a believer in Zachary for some time, that wants to say like, hey, you could not. This is the.
She's got a shot. She's got a shot.
Right. This is the best possible scenario. And the other side thing that I'm saying is this is why I go back to why I'm picking Jabeur to win. If you can't make this run the way things are set up for you,
well, it's hard though. I get what you're saying, but like once the tournament starts,
I know you got to win every match. I get it. I understand that. But boy,
and like whoever makes it out of this quarter, I actually have confidence shouldn't be like some heavy underdog versus Ons. Because if Bencic, Haddad Maya, or Ostapenko, whoever it ends up being, gets through, I actually, they're going to be playing like top 6, 7 grass court tennis. It's weird because we don't know them, but that'll be like a pretty good looking semifinal. But Ons, I got a good feeling about her too.
All right, very good. So give me your final.
I'm gonna go. Well, I think let's put the should I go with my heart or like my reality?
No,
I actually think like Iga is the most likely person to win this tournament. It would be Iga over Ons. I think would be my head pick. But let's go Serena over Ons with my heart pick. The doubles partners meet up in the finals.
I would love that so much. I have Ons over Halep in the final, as I have Halep defeating Swiatek in the semis. That's what I've got. All right, let's move to the men's side.
Courts of Thunder.
Of course, the big story coming into the men's tournament would be Novak Djokovic, who has won 3 consecutive Wimbledons, who has not yet won a tournament, except for the fact that Rafael Nadal's won the first 2 slams of the year. So, so that's where we are. I guess let's start with Djokovic's quarter, and let's just work our way down through that since he is the first quarter. Look, I know that, Riley Opelka could always be a threat to somebody. I understand that
hasn't done it in a while.
I want to believe that Jannik Sinner could do something. And I know, I guess somebody, I saw somewhere, I have not been paying attention. Has Oscar Oddie been playing particularly well of late?
He is the 32 seed. He has some grass court results. You know what you're seeing, and I wish I had mentioned this on the women's side. We should have mentioned, of course, that Russian and Belarusian players aren't playing.
Yeah.
And there's some seeds here, and then you throw in the usual assortment of injuries that you're like, what? Oscar Oddie is the 32 seed? Like, what? Cerebus Tormos, the 32 seed on the women's side. Here's just some players that aren't playing in this tournament, just quickly. On the women's side, Sabalenka, Azarenka, Kasatkina, Kudermetova, Alexandrova, Samsonova. Those would all be seeds. On the men's side, Medvedev, Rublev, Khachanov. Who am I forgetting? There's a number of players on both sides that are out, not just because the Russian aspect, but those are big time players, but also just injuries too. So I think that's where you get some of the Atas. But yeah, I was very surprised to see he was.
I got to go back because I somehow this slipped completely under the radar for me. His wins at Stuttgart and Halle included Shapovalov, included Khachanov, included Kekmanovic, included Basilashvili. Like, he's got some really good wins in recent weeks.
He was I believe a qualifier at Wimbledon last year and made a run and still had those points on, and now so he backed that up with a really good year.
So
yeah, we've gotten way deeper on
Oscar. Look, the other big story in this quarter is, of course, Carlos Alcaraz. The problem being, Carlos Alcaraz in his senior career has played 2 matches on grass. 2 ever. The hell do you do with that? It's similar to the Iga conversation, with the exception of, he's not on the heater that Iga's on because, we all know what happened. I have no idea what to make of what Carlos Alcaraz could do in this tournament whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm with you. He plays Struff in the first round, who's not a bad grass court player. He came in and they were showing him at this exhibition wearing a heavy brace on his shoulder. Didn't play a lead up. That's all very concerning. He would play either Fonini or Greek Spore in the second round. Not a gimme there if it's Fonini, and then Atta in the third. I actually think Novak was the biggest men's draw winner. I think the halves are imbalanced. The top half is definitely easier. And weirdly, Alcaraz was probably one of the best seeds he could have drawn as the high seed in his quarter, because the other options would have been Hurkacz,
right,
or Berrettini. And I like those guys better on grass. And so I think Novak has to look at this draw and love it. Maybe Kakanakis in the second round, maybe Kekmanovic in the third. I mean, they're not gimmies. Our guy that I think we might have mentioned on the end of the French, Van Rotehoven.
That's right.
Who was the Dutch player who played in his first ever ATP tournament, first ever win, and won the tournament against top level players. He is in this. Andy Murray's in this quarter too. Let's talk a little Murray.
How so, though?
Okay. In in Berlin.
He made a run.
Stuttgart, rather. I'm confusing my German countries. In Stuttgart, I would contend that Andy Murray played better than he's played since he was number one in the world. Basically, since he sold his body to get that number one ranking, which was really a heroic, crazy thing. And it hasn't been the same since. And I want to go through and see what those wins were.
Tsitsipas for sure.
Yeah, he beat Tsitsipas. He made a long run, and then he got hurt at the end of it, and he hasn't played since. And so that's kind of the story of Murray over the last few years. But I kind of think if he's in that form at all, he's a favorite to get to the round of 16. I think he can beat the players in front of him, which would be James Duckworth, then possibly Isner, and then either Sinner or maybe Wawrinka in the third round. I would love to see an Andy Murray run. I think he built his whole season to try to peak here, and you feel for him with another injury, a new injury, an abdominal injury.
I mean, it would be obviously incredible for it to be wonderful for tournament, wonderful for fans. It's hard to have faith. Like it would, trust me, I would be jumping up and down. I'd be through the roof, but it's just very difficult to have faith in that playing out. By the
Murray,
way,
Alcaraz, maybe. I mean, like, give me that. Give me that in the fourth round. I know that's a long way away for Andy Murray and Alcaraz for that matter, but give me that.
Wawrinka Sinner in the first round, by the way. That's a shit. I don't know what it is, Wawrinka, in the last few years. He definitely, in the 2020 French, drew somebody in the first round.
No, he had another one. Yeah, last French too. Like, he seems to be slightly getting back into form, but he's just not. He hasn't gotten too far back.
Second quarter. You want to go to the second quarter?
That's the most interesting quarter. Oh yeah. I meant to say Sinner is now working with Darren Cahill is now his coach, which makes me feel good about him.
Look, I love Sinner and would love to see a moment for him. I just,
Okay. Murray, by the way, in that tournament beat O'Connell, and then Bublik, who's good on grass, Tsitsipas, and Kyrgios in straight sets before losing a tight 3-setter to the king of grass, Matteo Berrettini, in the final. So just saying, look, these Brits, they know how to play on grass.
It was a really good week. It's tough. It's really
it was 3 weeks ago, and he got hurt.
100%. All right, next. In the second quarter, you find French Open finalist Casper Ruud. You also find, I think the favorite, let me double check on that. I assume the favorite to win that quarter. Yeah, Herbie Hurkacz is definitely the favorite to win that quarter at plus 155. And the guy that, like, I can't help but talk about, and he's not getting a lot of love betting wise. And I think I texted you about him a couple weeks ago, is Tommy Paul, who beat Jannik Sinner, who's trying to remind me that he can be a thing on grass, who beat Wawrinka, who beat Shapovalov. And I want to believe, and I know that it's reckless, and I know that it's going to end up with egg on my face for choosing to believe in him, but God, do I want to believe that Tommy Paul is ready to do something here.
I'm impressed with him. He's gotten better and better. He's a 25-year-old American. So he's not, he's just hitting his prime. He's the 30 seed here. Another one where it's like, he's seeded. Right. And it makes sense to me he's good on grass because he can do everything and has a lot of funky spin. And I would love him to make a long run here if he was in some different sections. And could he beat Hubie in the third round if they both get there? And I think they will. I mean, he has a chance, but Hurkacz is coming in off of a victory, off of winning that tournament, and just looking very good. A very classic grass court game, and to me is one of the sneaky, underdogs to win this tournament.
Sure.
I mean, you don't kind of have faith in any of these guys to actually get it done at the end. That's sort of why I picked Serena or Iga to be ons, because it's like, you got to do it.
Yep, yes, they're capable of it. I understand.
Right, you got to do it. But I think Hubie, because of this draw, and I think that he has a great chance to get to the semis, to me is a heavy favorite in that matchup if he gets to Paul. I wish Paul was in a different section because the top half of this quarter is the worst section of either draw. It's like the clay courts specialists. It's like Ruud has won 2 matches ever at Wimbledon. He's the 3 seed. Ramos is in there.
There's an opportunity.
Baez is a seed in there.
There's an opportunity for my guy Big Foe there.
Yes,
there really is. Like I'm not
is.
saying he'll take advantage of it, but there's an opportunity for him.
No, Francis, he's a little like Sloane in that he's very unpredictable.
Yep.
In that if he can get a little wind in his sails, then he's a different player, but he also slumps. And other than the one run he had in Portugal this year, he's basically been slumping all year. That said, he likes playing on grass. He likes big stages, and he's got a great draw. He plays Vavasori, who I'm not familiar with, in the first round, and then either Martyr or Bedene in the second. And then the seed in that section is Carreño Busta, who's never even made a third round here, so probably won't be there. And you're right. I think it's Francis the slight favorite. Like if you had to pick someone to get to the round of 16 he honestly might be the favorite.
Of that group,
Goffin is in here somewhere as a floater, and Bublik is. So I think it's probably one of those 3 guys gets through. I have no faith in Ruud. So it's a good opportunity for one of those guys to get to like a quarter versus Hubie and see what happens.
But I think we're both in agreement that Hubie is the player to beat and the guy that I believe will ultimately come through and end up getting.
He is. There's some Brits here too. Ryan Peniston is one who came out of nowhere and won a handful of matches, made a couple quarters, and then Cam Norrie. All these Brits have been winning matches on grass this year, like especially on the women's side, the lower ranked players. And so I don't know, you got to give them a chance.
All right. Next quarter. Indeed, where we find the king of grass, as you labeled him, he's back and all he does is win. He's like DJ Khaled. I don't know what to make of Matteo. You know how handsome I think he is. We've talked a lot about that, but he's about as close as you can get to a sure thing on grass at this point. Now, does that mean that I think he's going to win the tournament? No, but you got to tell me who's going to stop him from getting to the final, even including Rafael Nadal on the bottom.
Well, Rafael Nadal, we'll get to that, but Rafael Nadal is Berrettini the favorite in this half over Nadal?
Let me double check.
While you check that,
I believe he is.
While you check that, I'll remind listeners, Berrettini came back, won 2 straight tournaments, Stuttgart and Queens Club. Now I'm looking at who he beat, and it's not his fault because those actually were pretty good draws.
Berrettini is plus 190, Nadal plus 270.
And I think that could, at least, wow, that's crazy to me. I don't agree with that. And I know Berrettini's got a lot of and he looks healthy, and so you can't be too worried. The players he beat while winning these 2 tournaments: Albert, Sonego, Atta, Murray, Evans, Kudla, Paul, Van der Schlup, Krajinovic. It's like, okay,
right?
Okay, you did it, and you did a great job. I'm not saying you're a favorite to me over Rafael Nadal in the year 2022. But that's a long way away. Tsitsipas would be a potential quarter final, and Tsitsipas is coming off of a win in Mallorca. But Berrettini looks very comfortable for the first few rounds. His first seed is our friend Jensen Brooksby, who's seeded, by the way.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's ever won a match from the United States.
We say it's his first seed. I'm not so sure that Jensen Brooksby's going to get there.
No, that's what I would say. I don't think, has Jensen Brooksby ever won a match that wasn't on US hard courts?
Let me double check.
I'm joking, but
I know.
Go ahead. Hopefully he gets back in the mix.
Look, I would love nothing more than for Jensen Brooksby to have another moment here.
Demonor is up there as the 19th seed. He had a couple wins on grass. He has a history. Schwartzman is there as a 12. He's actually done better on grass than you would think. Just one name to circle is Jack Draper, a 20-year-old Brit who's probably their best prospect, I would say, since Murray, just in terms of has some upside, and is also known for his looks. Glenn has a modeling contract, so that would be a very handsome round 4 match, I believe, or round 3 versus Berrettini, which they'd absolutely put on center court and would get the sort of like local hype. So keep an eye on Draper, maybe as a fun matchup with Berrettini.
But you don't think anybody's taking out Berrettini before?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure that we weren't going all crazy. And then we moved to the final quarter.
Oh, wait, I do want to say one more thing about that quarter.
Okay.
Okay. I think Tsitsipas or Kyrgios have a chance to beat Berrettini in the quarters, and they play each other potentially in the third round. And Krajinovic is in there too, is in the final of Queens, but Kyrgios has sort of quietly had maybe his most consistent season. He hasn't played that much, but basically every tournament he plays, he makes the semis or quarters. He's playing pretty well. And just, he's got a chance. He certainly has a chance to beat Tsitsipas, who he beat a few weeks ago. And so that's something to watch. That's all. And we should mention Kyrgios. I think he's a real contender here. He has a tough draw, but he's a real contender.
I don't know if I can. I think he has the ability to be a real contender. He definitely now lives in the until I see it, I don't believe it's actually possible.
Right. The reason I feel better about him now is because he is doing it week after week. And I know he always implodes. And so I'm sure he will implode.
Right.
But he's been imploding in semis. You know what I mean? In finals and quarters. And he's been winning a lot of matches. If he actually keeps playing, he'll be in the top 20, 25 players at the end of this year. He's playing better than he's played in many years. That's
all right. And by the way, who else joined the list of the everybody's beating Tsitsipas? Who else? It was
no one in Mallorca, because we got it. We make fun of poor Steph, but he's literally second in the race this year somehow.
I know.
Because he plays every single week.
That's true.
He never stops playing.
He's always playing. Yes.
And he lost to Murray. Maybe that was what
that
we
was the one. That was what
Murray's had in a while.
That's what we were thinking about. We were 100% thinking about how good of a win that was for Murray.
And pour one out for Denis Shapovalov, who's the 13th seed. Will drop out of the top 25 after this tournament. He has lost 6 straight matches.
Eesh.
2 or 3 of which are against players I've never heard of, and he's in a hardcore slump.
All right, so we go to the final quarter, and I get that Nadal is the story of the quarter. I understand that, and we start with, he says the foot's okay, he says it's good. It didn't matter clearly at the French, but it is a story for sure. It is.
And he's not going to be shooting it up with
correct
painkillers, he said.
I think there are other stories in this quarter. I think Felix is a major story in this quarter. I think Taylor Fritz, we have to at least talk about as a potential story in that quarter.
This half is so much harder. Matt Berrettini section and this section is so much harder than the other half.
I am itching for a Felix Nadal rematch at Wimbledon. I am desperate for it. One, because Felix is such an entertaining player that I just want to see him succeed, because every time he plays in a match like that, you're going to get some sort of box office type of match. But secondarily, because I think he has the goods to be able to win and to actually be able to defeat Rafael Nadal, even if Nadal is playing well. It doesn't sound.
I don't think he's going to get there.
Okay. Why not?
I think he drew maybe the toughest floater other than Kyrgios in the entire draw in our guy from the US of A, Maxime Cressy.
Right. Yep.
Just made the finals of Queen's Club, is a classic serve and volleyer, literally the only serve and volleyer on the tour. That in theory sets up well on grass, was a couple points away from winning a stacked 500 field against Fritz. Maybe he's a little worn out. He doesn't have a lot of experience playing this many matches, but he beat Draper, he beat Norrie, he beat Opelka, he beat Evans. I don't know if Felix gets through that first match necessarily.
You think that Cressy, this is where I'm at. I think it's a very difficult match, and I agree with you. It's a tough.
And the winner plays Jack Sock, who creamed through qualifying. Or maybe plays Jack Sock. I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't see.
I don't see.
I think you're right to say that that's difficult. I disagree in that I think there's a true threat to him losing.
I want to see what the line for that is. Okay, Cressy's plus 260, Felix minus 340. That seems fair, but that shows it's not as big of a favorite as you would think. I kind of like Cressy there. I think sometimes when you're analyzing sports, Glenn, what you need to do is watch like 30 minutes of someone for the first time. Okay. And then base everything that you say just on those 30 minutes.
That's a good point. It's everything you know. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's me and Maxime Cressy right now since I picked up watching him versus Fritz 3-3 in the third set or whatever.
I watched a good bit of Cressy.
It's hard to prep for that though. There aren't any serve and volleyers out there.
That's it 100%.
I'm being real. Right. I think it's
that part 100% is true. No question. Yeah. What he does with serve and volley is insane. I mean, we're talking astronomical. Like he's like serve and volleying something like 70%.
Oh, that's it. I think and maybe it was because it was against Fritz. I didn't see a point where he didn't.
I believe that.
Certainly not a first serve. Maybe that includes the second serves, and it'll stay back. But you're right. Fritz is on a roll. You can't ignore Fritz here either. No, I kind of like, and that's kind of why I don't think Felix gets down in Nadal. Like between one of these Americans, Cressy, Sock, or Fritz, maybe one of them takes him out.
And again, a lot of this is my nervousness about Nadal and the foot, but I think FAA comes through here, and I think it's a Berrettini FAA semifinal.
Okay, I can make my strongest feeling be known here. Rafael Nadal, has less of a chance in your mind to make this semi than Felix. How about just by betting has less of a chance to make this final than Matteo Berrettini? Rafael Nadal is plus 650 to win this tournament when Novak Djokovic is minus. What are we doing here?
I understand
Rafael Nadal in one of his best seasons of his entire career. Continue to doubt this man. Yes, the foot is a concern, but continue to doubt this man. I'm not saying he's a favorite over Djokovic, but I don't think he's some monster underdog. Hubie has better odds to win this tournament than Rafael Nadal, having won the 2 first Grand Slams and one Indian, finals of Indian Wells, one Miami, all the stuff.
That's no longer true. That's no longer true. Hubie doesn't have better odds.
It doesn't matter.
Look, man, I know everything you're saying. And I think that I'm not doubting Rafael Nadal. I don't think that Rafael Nadal is holding up like this.
Why though? He just tricks you into thinking that all I'm saying is look at his record this year.
I know.
And that to me matters more. And yeah, maybe the foot bums out at some point. There's certainly a chance of that. But there's obviously a chance that it's fine. And then if his foot is okay, he has played better tennis than anyone on tour.
Is 100% true
by far. And it's not just on clay. It was on on hard courts.
Yep.
And people think he's like not a good grass court player. The last 2 times he entered this tournament, he made the semifinals.
Yep.
And one of them, he was like 2 games away from beating Djokovic. He should have won that match. That was 3 years ago now. But I'm just saying, I consider Djokovic a slight favorite if he played Nadal or to win this tournament versus Nadal. And I think those two are still ahead of the pack, including Berrettini.
I understand everything you're saying. And I'm telling you, it won't surprise me even slightly if Rafael Nadal actually wins this tournament, because I get it.
Okay, don't cover yourself here. I'm saying
just because I'm picking something else doesn't mean that I'm saying it's impossible.
Nadal 650, people. That's all I'm saying. Djokovic is negative 125. And I mean, Nadal's doing something special here this season, and so maybe it continues. That's all.
I know you are not the type that bets, but I did purchase a Berrettini ticket actually at the 550. But some of that is just because I get lost in his dreamy eyes. I can't.
I would say Nadal's draws fairly tricky. Query in the second round, he's no longer really Query, but Kudla in the third, maybe, whatever. Yeah. But then after that, Cilic maybe in the fourth. And then you mentioned all the, Felix or Fritz, that whoever gets through there, that's a tough one. And then he's on the same side as Berrettini and Felix. He is going to have to get through more tough matches than Djokovic. That to me explains the odds
Yes.
better than the foot.
Well, I think if the foot wasn't a thing, he would be not the favorite. I think he'd be the second favorite. I think him being behind Berrettini is specifically about the foot. That's I think that's the case. And look,
No, I think
Berrettini
you're right. I think you're right, but no one knows. No one knows.
All right. So are you picking him?
I am.
I
I'm
love
just gonna
it.
ride. I'm
love it.
gonna go
love it.
Nadal, going all the way. And something seems odd. I don't know. I don't have the faith in Novak that I normally do. And so I'll go because I'd like to see it Nadal over Hubie in the finals.
Okay. I like it. I like it a lot. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, because this is where the good news ends.
We'll see. We said we weren't going to do a preview show, so you never know.
That's true. That's true. Greg's headed out of town. He's headed elsewhere. I don't even know. I don't know if you want to tell anybody, but
oh, sure. I have too many podcasts. I don't keep secrets. Yeah, I'm heading with my wife to go see the in-laws in Japan for a few weeks. Yeah.
Awesome. It's very cool. I actually, I'm going to be dealing with a real issue, Greg. I will be calling. I'm part of ESPN's coverage of the Women's Lacrosse World Championships over the course of the next couple of weeks.
Nice.
And this is going to cause a real problem for me, because I've got morning, afternoon games in this event, and I don't know what I'm going to do exactly for the next 2 weeks. Like, as a professional, the answer is not put another screen up in the broadcast booth.
Yeah, you can't do
with a tennis match on. But the man that I am, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be
tough. Yeah, you're going to have to get some weird times and maybe wake up early or tape some stuff, or that's tricky. I'm a little worried too. Like, if you're out there and what's the best way to stream Wimbledon if you're in Japan, I've already found out ESPN Plus is geo-blocked there. So
really?
Hit me up, but there's always streams somewhere, so I hope
you can't do like a VPN bit, so it's still
well, yeah, we'll see. I'll find a way. The times are weird there. I'll have to be staying up late, but that's fine.
So we're just not going to be able to do shows during the tournament.
No,
is ultimately what we're saying. And
no, probably best case scenario is the next time you'd see us would be some sort of recap show. But even then, I don't know.
I don't have a good feeling about it. But we tried to do some U.S. hardcourt shows last summer, and we can try to do a couple of those again. I'm planning to be at the D.C. event, which has a full WTA tournament this year, which I'm very excited about. That is very good news. So
Sloane's going. I saw that.
I'm excited about that. So maybe a couple of one-offs here and there, and then we'll load up. We'll load up for the U.S. Open, and I'm going to make a promise. I'm going to make a promise for the U.S. Open. We'll have shirts available before then. All right. That's a promise that I will make to you guys. So, Greg, enjoy your trip. Appreciate you, pal. Thank you to all of you guys. I'll inevitably still be tweeting and stuff like that during the tournament. That will be happening for sure as this goes on. He's Greg. I'm Glenn. This has been Courts of Thunder.